like that loud, and they would just be like drawing up plays, and me as a tight ends coach, like I didn't know what the hell was going on. I knew the plays, but it was just like, okay, sure, sweet.
So my guy's got a corner route, right?
Yeah, they'd slide the paper over, and I'd draw it on Visio, and
hell yeah,
and then we'd go, so.
On today's episode of the Left Hash Call, we have a dog. This individual has spent time in the offensive line room at Iowa. This individual has also won conference championships in the American Rivers Conference, formerly known as the Iowa Conference, the MAIA, the CCIW, and the NSIC. Plain simple, this dude is a winner. And now he is the offensive line coach at Drake University. Welcome to the show, Quincy Griffith. How you doing today, man?
Good. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have you on the show. I knew of you when I was at Simpson. Obviously, you had just, obviously a year prior, you took the job at Iowa to be the assistant offensive line coach, but you were at Simpson College for a spring at Simpson, and that's kind of how I have known of you, but admire you from afar, and so excited to have you on today.
I appreciate it. No, and I heard nothing but good things of you. I'm saying this like I've met you this first time I met you. I haven't, obviously, but I remember when Simpson hired you. Coach Hoskins said, we got this guy coming in from River Falls who knows his shit and does a really good job, and he was hyped up too because he did graphics. So
yeah, it's definitely, that was my foot in the door for a lot of different places. Like, oh yeah, by the way, I think that was Coach Hoskins' thing. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, we would sure like it if you would do some graphics for us.
Yeah.
And of course, that's now I'm doing it here, which is kind of why we've,
that's right.
Obviously got the Drake Blue on now, and
that's right.
That's kind of how we've kind of got. It's funny, this staff here at Drake, I have a few connections to it just over the years. Like Drew Adams, like I went to every single camp with him. Obviously, our connection through Simpson, and then Wayne State. There's a couple different connections, through there with, Tanner Krieger, and then obviously Boyer as well. And then I ran track against Joe Evans a bunch, growing up. But, what was this getting this job like? Let's go back to, the winter time. What was, kind of that process like? Obviously, you were finishing up a season, at Iowa. What was kind of this whole process like getting hired here?
Yeah, so I was the assistant line coach at Iowa, which technically on paper I was a graduate assistant, which not that it's much of a difference, whatever. I was an offensive assistant. I helped out with whatever was needed, and those graduate assistant jobs, especially at that level, usually go to maybe 3 years. And I've had a lot of stuff change over the last 12 months. That's been really good in my life. And number one, I was ready to get back to running my own room. I had only done that leading up to going to Iowa, and then I didn't for 2 years. So I wanted to get back to that. I wanted to get closer to home if possible because, my folks still live in Ankeny. I'm from Ankeny. My folks still live in Ankeny. My brother just moved back to Ankeny from Chicago. My grandparents live in Ankeny. I got family in West Des Moines. Bunch of connections here. So that was a big deal. Plus, I always looked at Drake from afar. And I've known a couple people that have played here, coached here, a couple mentors in my life that played and coached here. And I just always knew that Drake was a place that you could do really, really cool stuff at. And it's right in the heart of Des Moines. And I think as a Central Iowan, I thought it was unique how, not that Drake, everyone knows about Drake, everyone knows of, it's here and this and that, but not a lot of people followed the football program, I think, historically, at least when I was growing up. And not that hasn't been the case or this or that, but I think there's a chance always at this place to do more. No matter how much you're doing, there's always a chance to do more and be more successful than you already are. And I think it was really cool how the last staff that was here, they had 2 back-to-back really good seasons. And I knew Coach Stepsis, and he's a really good dude and does a really good job. I actually interviewed here 2-3 years ago. For the O-line job, and obviously didn't get it, but things work out. And I just always knew Drake was a place that'd be really, really cool because I almost came here out of high school too. I almost came and played here out of high school, and obviously I didn't. But It just kind of, it seemed like a place I was always chasing a little bit. And the opportunity came open, and heard Joe Woodley got the job, and I've known Joe for a little bit, and I think him and I have very similar ideals when it comes to football, as well as just this community, mainly because, I mean, you're not going to find a more Iowa family when it comes to football than the Woodley family, and
That's for sure.
They're integrated in this community, and this is a place I care a lot about, and I know he does too, and I thought those ideals would match up really well, and so I thought it was a really good opportunity to try and pursue, and I interviewed on New Year's Day and got the job.
Were you in the middle of bowl prep at that time?
Yeah, when I got the phone call to see if I was interested in it, we were in Tennessee, in Nashville, for the bowl game, and I think that was like we played on a Monday. That was like Saturday. He called me and just was like, "Hey, when you're back next week, let's get together." And so I got back, would have been New Year's Eve, so that night, and I texted him at like 8:00 that night and said, "Hey, I'm back in town." And it was a Tuesday night or a Monday night, and I said, "Hey, do you want to meet, sometime this week or whatever?" And he was like, "Yeah, tomorrow morning. Can you be at Drake at 10 a.m.?" I was like, "Sure." So we figured it out, and we got her done next day. So.
Was there any hesitancy knowing that there was going to be an Iowa State guy as the coordinator, or does that make you more excited?
No, not at all. Iowa State, I've got one of my best friend from high school. He's been at Iowa State since 2020 now. I played with about 4 guys that played at Iowa State and coached there. I got nothing but respect for Coach Campbell and his program, and I know a good amount of coaches that are there now, and so to be hesitant about that, I think would be, I don't know, just weird, because
no, not at
professionally,
all.
Yeah. and personally, I heard nothing but good things about those guys, and the times I have met them, they've been awesome, and obviously they're coming off the best season in program history, and it's hard to not get excited about joining someone who's been a part of that, especially someone like Kyle, because you're talking about Kyle, especially someone like Kyle who's been there from the ground up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's been there the same amount of time as Coach Campbell has, and he's been there for the good, been there for the bad, and everything else in between. So it's really cool to be a part of that. And I had met Kyle before, not a ton, but I'd known him and met him before, and real great dude, and really excited to be a part of it.
When I was at Simpson, we went up to Iowa State for a practice, and it was incredible to watch. Like, I haven't been to a practice at Iowa, but like watching those guys work, watching Coach Campbell lead that group, and I learned a lot about kind of his past, working for Coach Aldinger at Simpson, because obviously Mount Union guys in general. And yeah, like you said, it's unbelievable what they've done at Iowa State. I as well have a lot of respect for what those guys do. But I want to go back and talk about you and your journey to where you are now. You grew up in Ankeny, ultimately ended up going to Wartburg. What was kind of your recruiting journey like? Were you kind of a highly recruited guy? What was kind of what was kind of your recruiting process like?
Yeah, so recruiting's so different now, and the relationships are the same. How you go about it's the same for the most part, but it's just so accelerated now. I tell kids all the time, like, I didn't think about college, especially college football, until pretty much after my senior season of high school. And I know it's a lot different now, and I know at the time, I'm not 100 years old. I'm 30 years old, so it's not like it was forever ago. But it's just one of those things that I think has been so different and so accelerated that when I was in high school, I didn't my number one goal in high school was to be a captain for my high school team, win a state championship for my high school team, and then everything else after that was secondary, including recruiting and that kind of stuff. And we ultimately did. I achieved both those goals, and it was. We had a really good year. We were 14-0 and won a state title at Ankeny, and then recruiting started. And my parents went to Wartburg, so I was very familiar with it. And there was a couple Ankeny kids who were up at Wartburg at the time, and a couple of my teachers that I had growing up that I loved. And the reason I wanted to be getting education for the most part, they were Wartburg grads. One was a football player there, and so that had a big impact on my decision to look at them. I looked at a couple other schools, like a couple D2 schools. Drake was a school I really liked because it was high-level football, and I really liked Coach Creighton when he was coaching here, and when I had met him a few times. And But ultimately, it was just kind of like, I'm going to go to Wartburg because it's a place that I'm somewhat familiar with, but it's a big change for me. I'm far away, but I'm not that far. My brother was at Northern Iowa at the time as a student, so it's not like it's only 15 minutes down the road, and I wanted to be a teacher, and I had like 5 teachers that I really, really looked up to in my entire life of being a student, and all 5 of them went to Wartburg, so I thought that was, bodes well for the future on that, and they had great facilities, and Coach Willis has a track record of success, and Coach Toohey was my O-line coach. He was my recruiter too, and him and I had a really good relationship, still do. Shout out Coach Toohey, he's a man. It felt good, and it was a little later too. Like I think I committed like March 1st.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that is late. Yeah.
But I think I kind of knew most of the time what I wanted to do, and like in every recruiting, you kind of know when you know, but until you kind of take that jump or say, hey, I'm going, like there's always that kind of like, and then it's like you just got to do it. Like if you feel it, you got to do it, and so I did that and went up there.
Did you know how what kind of program Wartburg, did you know that the football program was as successful as it was? Because when I was, I was kind of in a similar position. Like I was, getting recruited by a lot of the Iowa Conference schools, and I didn't really know the dynamics between the different teams. Like I knew Central. I didn't like Central because they were in Pella, and I was an Oski guy, and so I didn't. Yep. They were just right down the road, and then it was like Wartburg and Simpson, and I didn't know the differences between those 2 teams. And I remember the first time we played Wartburg, I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are insane. Like we ended up beating them my freshman year. But that was something that shocked me a little bit about D3 football in general, was how good the football was, and especially Wartburg has consistently been unbelievable throughout the years.
No, yeah, and I knew it was a good program, and I knew there had been a track record of success. When I went there, they were coming off a 6-4 season. Okay, so it was a little, not like, oh man, they're bad by any means, not at all. But I had known. Historically they had been successful, at least under Coach Willis. And then, like, my dad played there too, and I knew the history pretty much from the late 80s on. And there was a lot of people that came from there that had really good successes. And to me, like, obviously you want to be successful as a program. Like, that's a big deal. Winning's a big deal. But one of my bigger things was, like, the caliber of person that went to school there, did athletics or activities, and then came out of there that I knew. Like, they were all very, very high caliber, top quality people. And I thought that was another big thing that maybe I wasn't thinking about consciously at the time, but subconsciously I was probably, of like, okay, I've never met a bad person who went to Wartburg that I know and never had a bad interaction with them. So there's got to be something about this place. And I can go play football and at a high level like that. So that was exciting for me. So I knew the program itself was good football-wise, but the other stuff, it was more of not a character thing, but it was more of a, like, I know the kind of people that come out of here, and successful people breed successful teams, and I think that's huge, and I think that's something that Wartburg has been able to do for a long time. I got asked by a coach who's in the SEC one time when I told him I went to Wartburg. He said, "How's Wartburg so good all the time?" Mm-hmm. He's like every year they're so good, and he's like, "How do they do it?" And he was like, I was kind of like, "Oh, you're an SEC coach," and he's like, this is about 5 years ago, and so I was just still kind of new to this coaching thing, and he was like, "No, I'm serious." He's like, "Why? How are they so good?" He's like, "What is their secret?" And I said, "Consistency." Yeah. Because if you look at Wartburg, there's been, Coach Winters, the head coach there, has been there forever. Coach Wheeler, the OC there, has been there for a long time, played there. Coach Cheddar, the D coordinator, played there, coached there. Trying to think of other coaches on staff. Coach Lape, he's younger than me, but he played there. He's coaching there now. I had Coach Dewey, who played there, coached there. Paul Mugen, shout out Paul Mugen. He's played there with my dad, and he's been a part-time assistant coach there, and you'll be hard-pressed to find someone who's more passionate about Wartburg and Wartburg football than that man. And when you have those guys around the program, and they're there year in and year out, there's a standard, and they know what success is. They've had it, and they try to, every year in and year out, and then they keep building on it, and I think the university itself is aligned that way too. university. I think it's a college or a university. Wartburg College, go Knights. But it's the school itself is aligned with that kind of thinking, top to bottom. So they're going to get some free pub out of this. So
you can definitely see it when you go there that there's buy-in from a lot of different places, and that can be an issue at different schools depending on where you're at. If the admin isn't, necessarily bought in on football, if the admin doesn't necessarily, I don't want to say care, but if there can be some rift there, and it's, you walk in the W in there and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I went on a couple of visits there myself, and it's incredible. I mean, what they're able to accomplish over there. Was there a team while you were there that stands out that you're like, that was the best team while I was there?
That I played on?
Yeah, one of those specific teams.
Yeah, our 2014 team, we were 12-0, 12-1, but we were 12-0 going into the third round of the playoffs. Played at Whitewater, who was ranked number 1 in the country, and we lost by 2, 33-31, I believe. And this is just a dagger, but I think we're up 31-15 or 31-16 going into the fourth quarter. They won it all that year, and they had 2 guys that got drafted that year. Yeah. So it was the last year of Coach Leipold, who's now Kansas's head coach, when he was the head coach there. And we had a really good team that year. We had a good senior class mixed in with the right juniors, the right sophomores, and we had a couple freshmen that were contributors too. But it was just that team. You could just tell, like, we thought we were really good, and we played like, we backed it up. And, we weren't, I mean, maybe we were, I don't know. I didn't think we were, like, arrogant or anything like that, but, like, we had an attitude when we stepped on the field of, like, we're going to beat you no matter what, And we joked that year we were the Minnesota Conference MIAC champions, too, because we beat
Bethel, St. John's.
We beat Augsburg, Bethel, St. John's, and St. Thomas all that year. So that was just a really, really fun year, and we had a really, really good team, and you look at it, I was just talking to Robbie Aldinger about this the other day, because he was a coach at Mount Union. Yeah. And Whitewater beat Mount by 9 in the national championship game. And I think if we would have beat Whitewater, we would have had obviously a really good shot. You can play the ifs and buts game, but we had a really good shot at winning all that year, because we were very, very talented. And we had a lot of good seniors that were really good players and had a lot of experience, and they led us through. So
yeah, and you've definitely kind of seen how over the course of the years, Wartburg has always been really consistent. But I mean, these last couple of years, obviously, with having some of those fifth-year guys coming back, like that kind of, you can just see what kind of development goes on there. And if you give those guys an extra year there, I mean, you saw the last couple of years what they've been able to do. But you mentioned you knew you want to be a teacher. Did you always know you wanted to be a coach? Is that always kind of was in your blood? And
yeah. So my parents both were coaches and teachers. My mom stopped coaching when my brother and I were born, so she coached for 5-6 years, something like that. But they were both athletes too. At Wartburg, my mom played basketball, Dad did football, and then growing up, my parents they were at the high school for the most part, and then my dad was a high school football coach and a high school baseball coach, and so year round, and he did a scoreboard for the basketball game. So year round, I was in the school 6:30 in the morning or whatever till 8 o'clock at night. Whether it was a practice, this or that, and I loved it. Like that's where I wanted to be, and so I just I always say that was kind of second nature to me, wanting to do that, and just be like, I don't know. I enjoy interacting with people. I think the heartbeat of most communities is the school, whether it's a college or the high school, and I think that's something that's really special to be a part of. And I think that's where you can have the biggest impact with young people as well too. So I thought that's what I wanted to do, and if I could give back to people and kids what my teachers gave to me, like that's a pretty cool job description. Like that's a pretty awesome life experience. So that's kind of why I wanted to do it the whole time. Now, coaching wise, like I was dead set on being a high school teacher, high school coach, wanted to do that. And then coming out of college, like my second semester at Wartburg after I was done playing, I was kind of like, I might try and do this college coaching thing. It'd be kind of cool to do that full time and try and get into that. And I met some people and got some good advice, and the best advice I got was, if you want to be a college coach, you got to be willing to go anywhere, do anything, at any time, for any amount of money, for any job, especially as a young coach.
That's for sure, man.
And I know I just pretty much said you got to be willing to do anything for anyone, but that's really what it is. And I wasn't going to teach for 5 or 6 years and then go be a coach. Like that really doesn't happen. It happens, but not. It's very rare.
Yeah.
So I just kind of jumped into it and did the college thing, and here I am. That would have been 2018 was my first year as a college coach, so here I am.
Where was that at, that first year?
Illinois Wesleyan.
Illinois Wesleyan,
Yep.
right. And you were with Coach Hoskins at the time, right?
Yep. Shout out Reed for getting me that job.
Yeah. What was your title at the?
I was the outside linebackers coach.
What was that? Coaching outside linebacker. Obviously, you're an offensive lineman, and that's probably all you really knew at that point. What was that transition like?
Yeah. It wasn't. I mean, it was unique, but before I took that job, I was a teacher at Carlisle High School. And I coached defensive line, and I was the freshman defensive coordinator there.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a ton of it wasn't like foreign language to me defensively, but definitely a collegiate defense is different than a high school defense, right. As well as whatever. And when I was coaching at Carlisle, I was D-line coach. And I mean, I just pretty much told my kids to get pissed off and go hit someone. I still do that, but I always said if you had an attitude and you had a motor, if you had a motor and you were mean, you could be a good player. And I think that still holds true today, but that's kind of how I approached it that second year when I was at Wesleyan. I just had to get a lot more into X's and O's. The unique part about that job, and I know you've had different people on the podcast that have done different things, and I think it's really cool what you're doing, by the way.
Appreciate it.
There's jobs like Wesleyan where I was the defensive GA. We had an offensive GA. On offense, you had Coach Hoskins, and then you had the head coach.
Yeah.
And on defense, we had the D coordinator, and then we had a DB's coach. And so there was 4 full-time coaches, if you include the head coach, and then there was 2 GAs.
Wow.
And that's the staff.
So there's you're probably doing a lot at the same time. You're not kicking something else down to somebody else.
Correct.
You're breaking down film. You're doing all the data.
Correct.
Input.
Now, I was very fortunate to work with, and Reed, Coach Hoskins. He's a freaking grinder. He gets he's a worker, and that's what I appreciate about him the most is he does a really good job of doing his job.
Yeah.
And he won't ask anyone to do anything that he wouldn't do himself. And everyone at Wesleyan was like that, with Jeff McDonald, who was the D coordinator, Seth Carson, who was our DB's coach, and with Reed, and then Daniel Hill was the offensive GA. Those were the four guys, and then Coach Norm Ash was the head coach. But those 4 guys, us assistants, we did the bulk of everything. Yeah. And Daniel and I were the strength coaches. I am not a weightlifter. I don't mind weightlifting. It's not my forte. I'm not whatever. Daniel, our wide receivers coach, offensive GA, he's not a weightlifter. That he would lift weights, but him and I are not the poster boys for fitness. And
right.
I'm not trying to throw Daniel on the bus because he'd run circles around me, but him and I leading a weight program at a college level was not. I mean, we made do. You know what I mean? And I thought we did a really good job with what we had and what we did and stuff like that. And and then we helped. We did equipment. We handed out jerseys every Friday.
Yeah.
To kids, we would supervise. If guys had to eat at a certain time, we had to be there to supervise. If we were, I drove my truck. I drove recruits around in my truck. By my, just is what it is, and stuff like that, and just little things you do as a graduate assistant, as a lower level coach, and almost every coach in the country has had that type of experience, and everyone's is a little unique. I listened to Boyer talk about shoveling the paw and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was there. I was one of those guys who was there to help him the first time, and then after that, I think I maybe did it one other time, but
yeah, he was telling his story was oh yeah, this is gonna be a thing. We're gonna do this all the time. We're as a staff. No, it wasn't. It was a one-time deal. GAs go get it done.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you kind of find a way to do everything. And back to your original question about what was it like defensively? I learned so much just about. It was really cool because I looked at things from an offensive lineman perspective or offensive perspective. So I helped out. We had a part-time guy named Rich Baldwin, Rich is a phenomenal coach. He's a high school teacher and coach at Bloomington High School, and he was an alum, so he'd come over and coach D-line. But if he wasn't able to be there, I ran the D-line meetings, and if not, I was in the linebacker meetings with Coach McDonald, and it was really cool because I got to coach D-line, I got to coach linebackers. We had a line that was, D3. Sometimes you get those rosters huge, and we had a linebacker room, I think, of like 32 kids.
Holy cow.
So a lot of times Jeff would take the 3 deep or whatever, the 12 or the 9, excuse me, there's my math, and then I would take the other 22 or whatever, and we'd get after it. So, but you kind of just learn what's important and learn what you need versus what you want, and learn how to get things done in a timely manner. And it was a really, really good experience for me. We had a good season. We were 8-2. We were co-conference champs. Yeah, we had a really good year. So it was a very, very good learning experience to me. And if for people who don't know, Bloomington, Normal, Illinois, very, very cool place to live. Very cool town, right in the center. You're 2 hours from Chicago, 2 from St. Louis, and it's a really, really cool community because Bloomington's a little older, a little more blue collar, if you would. Normal's where Illinois State is. They separate by like 30 feet, the two schools. Wow. So, Normal's where Illinois State is, and that's a little newer, if you would, a little not white collar by any means, but like Bloomington, that's where State Farm's headquarters is too. So it's a really cool community to live in and to be at, and to have like a football program and stuff like that. So really enjoyed my time there. Really, really enjoyed it there. So everyone in the department there, phenomenal people.
So you end up going to Central Missouri, and that is an offense, and I'm not sure if they've been this way forever, but very up-tempo, very high-octane type of deal. What was it like coaching an up-tempo offense like that?
Yeah, so I went to Central Mo to coach tight ends. I wanted to be back on the offensive side, and I was kind of an offensive line assistant, if you would. It was – if you look up Central Missouri, and that's where Willie Fritz was the head coach for a long time and had a ton of success. Willie Fritz is now the head coach at Houston. And then after Willie Fritz was Jim Sabota, and Coach Boda was a record-setting coordinator at he was a head coach at Nebraska Westland, which is now in the ARC, like in the late 80s, early 90s, at like 26 years old.
Wow.
And then he went from there, I believe, to be the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Northwest Missouri State, and won a couple national titles there, set a bunch of records offensively, went from there. And I don't know if he went directly to, but then he was at UCLA for a little bit. Then he kind of bounced around. He's at Montana State, I believe. And then he was the head coach at Central Missouri. And when he got to Central Mo, they went from being like really good team with good offenses to like a high octane, insane, like I think they had a quarterback in like 2011 or 2012 that threw for like almost 5,000 yards in a lower level football, like any level football, but like it's like holy shit, and they and offensively, like that was his deal. He was a quarterback guy, an offensive guy, and so when I got there in 19, they had been doing that for about 8-9 years, and then the offensive coordinator I worked for was John McMiniman. Johnny Mack, who Boyer had mentioned in his podcast, and he was a quarterback coach, and he had coached a couple. He played for Coach Sabota at Northwest Missouri State and was one of those record-setting quarterbacks. And he had been at Central Mo for 4 or 5 years prior to then, and they had 2 or 3 It was almost like every other year they had a quarterback who was a Gagliardi finalist.
Right, yeah.
Or wait, Harlan Hill, sorry. Gagliardi's D3.
Yeah, that's D3. Right,
Harlan Hill finalist for D2. And
it's been like every year, too.
Coincidentally, they've had the guy they've had it this past 2 years has won it the last 2 years. Yeah, so, but Josh Lamberson, who's the head coach at Central Missouri now, also played for Coach Sabota, also was a coach under him at Central Missouri prior to his time there. And that system, that offensive system of no huddle, everyone's got a wristband, everything is spelled out. There's 3 or 4 different tempos. They can be slow, they can be lightning fast. We're going to overwhelm you with our athletes. And it was just really, really cool to see how that functioned. And I think the biggest thing I learned from that year at Central Mo is don't be afraid to be creative with your offense.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where they were an offensive team offensive head coach, so it was go, 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 like touchdown, then another touchdown, then try to check down. A lot of teams, there's like if the touchdown's not there, then you check it down. It's like touchdown, then then check it down, type stuff. And it was really, really fun. Like meetings were really fun to just design, like listen to Coach Sabota and Coach McMiniman, like just talk and design plays. And Coach McClung too, Hank McClung, who I believe is coaching high school ball down in Texas now, but he's been with Coach Sabota forever. He was with him all the way. They did GA together back in the 80s, and then with him all the way. And just listen to those guys talk about like how to attack defenses. And it was never like, oh, they're giving us cover 3, so we got to make sure we do this, this, this. It was just like, God, what if this guy ran this and this guy ran that, and we ran this play fake? Like that'd be a bitch to cover. And, I'm sure they had more, methods to their madness of attacking coverages and loaded boxes and stuff like that. But it was just really cool because we'd throw on music, and Coach Boda loves like Bruce Springsteen. He'd have Bruce Springsteen playing in there like you're at the concert, like that loud, and they would just be like drawing up plays. And me as a tight ends coach, like I didn't know what the hell was going on. I knew the plays, but it was just like, okay, sure, sweet.
So my guy's got a corner route, right?
Yeah, they'd slide the paper over, and I'd draw it on Visio, and then we'd go, So it was just really, really cool, that experience with that offense, because it cannot be successful without creativity. And I think that's the biggest thing I learned there. Like, don't be afraid to try something. Now, obviously, put your players in the best position to win, which they did, and that's Coach McMiniman. Like, he is okay, who are my guys? How can I get them the ball? And that's going to allow us to win. Like, he is not afraid to try anything. He is fearless when it comes to the plays he's calling and the guys he's putting in, trust in their hands because he's coached them and developed them and that kind of stuff. And they've been in that system. And with those wristbands too, like you can make a play call 2 sentences long, and everything means something. Everything means something for someone else too. So
was there a lot of killing? I mean, was there a lot of checking plays with them?
There was. We didn't have a lot of kills, if you would, but we had a lot of we would call double plays. So, and this is not one thing you learn as a GA. The wristband, the double plays are in blue, and they have to be on the first card. It sticks out. And but the double plays are literally, it's the same play, just 2 different directions out of a base formation or an even formation for the most part. And you just, you fake clap or you hard count or whatever, look to the sideline in the press box, you literally count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 guys on this side, which means there's 6 on that side. They'll run into the side that has 5 guys on it. I mean, that's not exactly what it is, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So you don't have to get crazy with it. It's attacking numbers and using your playmakers to the best of their abilities. And we were loaded that year.
I was going to get into that. Is a lot of those kids in the recruiting, like, is that a Missouri team? Or is it kind of nationally?
Missouri, KC area, St. Louis area, and then a lot of our really strong kids, Omaha and Chicago.
Okay.
We had a lot of good group of kids come out of Chicago, and every state, in my opinion, has the same. Your top kids are going to be as good as anyone in any state. Like the state of Iowa's best kids are going to be the best kids, and by best kids I mean they're top recruits. Right. They're going to be the best kids in most of the states. Now, state of Iowa, we might have 4 or 5. Right. Whereas like Illinois and Chicago, you might have 14 or 15. Right. And so on and so forth and across the board. And so that level is a little different there. But it was mainly I'm just trying to think of our best players across the board. I mean, it's just so funny how things work. Our left tackle now starts at guard for San Francisco 49ers. Right. Our tight end he's not a starter, but plays for the Buffalo Bills. We had 2 wideouts that year that both got drafted. One's with the Cowboys now. The other one, I'm not sure if he's still in the league. The quarterback was the player of the year. He's from Nebraska. And one of the receivers was from Nebraska. One was from Chicago. Tight end was from Joplin area. Left tackles from St. Louis area. all those guys were young, and that was kind of transfer portal was a thing, but it was kind of the year before, and they all did really, really well and elevated themselves and went to places and got better. And so we were really fortunate. You look back at that team, like we had a lot of guys on that team for being a D2 team that were really good football players. And I'm not saying D2 football is bad, but like
Different,
usually,
I mean,
like
different level.
There's 4 guys on that offense. One didn't even play a lot that are on NFL rosters.
Yeah, it's
like what?
absurd.
So, but that if you've ever been down in Central Missouri, like it's a beautiful place. They got really nice facilities. I mean, I am gassing up every school I've ever been to.
I love it. No, yeah, they're going to love that. They're going to engage and retweet. It's going to be great.
I hope so. But Central Mo got great facilities. They got great fan backing. Like they get a bunch of people at their games. The community is really involved. And the school is a lot bigger school than most other schools in that conference too. So your student body is a lot bigger too, and which there's a lot more to offer from there. Plus, about 45 minutes from downtown Kansas City.
Yeah, well.
So that helps out too. So.
Were you involved in the recruiting at that point? Like, were you
a little bit?
Okay.
I got there the day before spring practice started.
Okay, so you're probably a little late in the cycle for
and
sure.
And I left the Wednesday after our last game.
Yeah. Okay. So really not. Yeah, so really, you missed basically all of it.
I missed the cycle, but I was there in the summers, obviously, in game day visits and that kind of stuff, and I think there was where I kind of learned that, because when you're at a D3 school, like when I was at Westland or even when I was at Wartburg, like you don't do a ton of like that. You roll out the red carpet, but in your own way.
Sure.
Because you're not trying to tailor to a kid. Like a kid's not going to visit there because they're going to be put in a nice car or they're
right.
That kind of stuff. They're going there because it's a really good school and it plays high level football, and they're going to have that experience, that student athlete experience. And Central Mo was that first school that I was at that was like, okay, we have a really high level football program, and we have the resources to kind of bring kids in, and like they'd fly kids in, they'd pick them at the airport in car, that kind of stuff. Like that was the first place that I kind of experienced that at a high level. So that was really cool to see. And I didn't see it a ton, but it was like that. Okay, like you want to be a good program, this is what stuff you got to do in recruiting and stuff like that. So.
One thing is the starting time at the time you mentioned you went to the NFL. He's also the starting punter. Was that your doing?
No,
yeah.
No, he would have gotten drafted higher if I hadn't coached him. Let's just put it that way. So no, Zach is a shout out Zach Davidson. He's 6'6", 6'7", 210-pound athlete who was a really good basketball player and was a really good punter. He played at a really good team, Webb City. I think it's Webb City, but they're down by Joplin, really football powerhouse. And he didn't have a lot of tight end tape just because he was their punter, and he was a really good punter. And it was kind of like, okay, this or that. And I remember him saying he had 2 schools that were final schools. It was Central Mo or Missouri Southern, and Missouri Southern was right in town, so he kind of wanted to get away. And he played tight end because he was tall and fast, athletic, and Central Mo's had a history of tight ends that are really good players. I think they've had 4 or 5 in the time that Coach Sabota had been there, and even Delaney Walker, who played for the Titans. He was there. It's from there, so that was a big presence. And they had the guy they had right before him was an All-American, and so Zach just said he learned and kind of hung out. And by his sophomore year, I think redshirt sophomore year, mid-true sophomore year, I can't remember what it was. He had started playing a little bit as a second tight end, and he was fat, like. He ran a 4.59, I think, at laser time his pro day at 6'7", 252 or something like that.
Goodness gracious.
So he's always been fast.
Yeah.
And then he started to pick up on the nuances of like beating a man to a spot, or beating a guy in zone, or playing off of guys' eyes and getting a guy to flip his hips, and then you break it off the other way. And he was really, really athletic when it came to that. So the year before I got there, he had a pretty big year. He had a couple 100 yards receiving, and then it just was that next year he just exploded. He didn't have a touchdown going into the third game, and I told the tight ends, like, and this is something I do with tight ends, if we score a touchdown as a tight end, I'll get pizza for everyone on Thursday night. And he didn't have a touchdown going into week 3, and we had scored 70 points in week 2.
Oh, jeez.
And he hadn't had a touchdown, and he actually dropped one over the middle that I thought was going to be. But anyway, so I hadn't done that up until then, and then I put that on them. and he had 4 touchdowns for like 280 yards in the next game.
Gosh!
And on 5 catches.
So is pizza per?
It's not per touchdown. Thank God.
Oh yeah, that would have on the.
I was not making any money.
You were
there,
probably restricted earnings at the time.
So I was not, but it was per game. Yeah. So, but he ended up having 15 touchdowns that year through the next 11 games.
Wow.
So, we had pizza every week. We had pizza every single week that year. So, but
and your first full-time job was at Wayne, correct?
Yep.
So, kind of walk me through that process and your kind of experience there, Wayne.
Yeah. So, Coach McMiniman at Central Missouri got the head job at Wayne State, and he had been there before. And ironically, I went on a visit there when I was a senior in high school, and he was the coach who I met with when I was on my visit.
Okay, yeah.
It would have been 7 years prior or whatever to that, or 6 years prior. And I left Wayne when I was in high school on a visit, and I said, I'm never going back to that place. My visit was fine. It was good. It was like a lot of Iowa kids, they see that border, whether it's Nebraska, Missouri, Minnesota, whatever, they see that border as like, that next day was like a foreign country. A lot of Iowa kids think that sometimes, and I was one of those kids. And so I literally was like, this is so far away. I'm not going to come back here. It's like, get out of here, So I was not very interested, but then I thought about it, and it's like, it's a full-time job. Like, it's a D2 school. They play in a really good league. Mm-hmm. They've had success. They hadn't recently up until when we got there, but they had before. And it was a chance to work with Coach McMiniman, who gave me an opportunity at Central Missouri, and I knew the offense, and it was a good opportunity, and it was kind of like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but we're going to dive to, fully into this thing, and so took the job, went there. Myself and 3 other coaches lived in a freshman dorm room. We didn't live in one room together, but we each, 2 of us had a room. So there was 2 rooms, and each of us, a pair of us, lived in the dorm room for 4.5 months. But we were there for about a month and a half, and it was just us coaches. And we would have visits Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And then Monday night, we would all drive back to where we were recruiting and go recruit Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, get back home Thursday night, have another visit Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And because they hadn't signed anyone, we got hired in like middle of January, and signing day was February 5th, so we threw together a class in 3.5 weeks where it was just recruiting.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean? And then once that happened, then we took over and kind of got after the off-season program and started doing some stuff, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
So it was interesting because Wayne, Nebraska is a small town, kind of not out in the middle of nowhere, but you got to want to get there.
Yeah.
And when COVID happened, it was like, oh, we're kind of isolated already. So we just kept working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We kept going, and the kids all went home, but we were in the office every day. We were doing virtual stuff, and we were still living in the freshman dorm rooms, me and a couple other guys. So,
was it a like you all shared the same space type of deal?
Yeah, there was our room, and then another room, and then there was down the hall towards the front door was the men's bathroom. Down the hall to the other side was the women's bathroom.
Oh my gosh!
So I don't know why I remember this, but I distinctly remember it smelled like death in the hallway. Well, when the kids went home for COVID, one of the kids forgot like their fish or a couple fish they had in their room, and so they died. And then the water drained, evaporated, whatever you want to call it. And so there was just like dead fish sitting in one of the rooms.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, we were kind of worried, but it ended up just being dead fish. So.
Jeez.
But yeah, we were in that, and it was right across the street from the stadium, so we just walked to work every day, and stuff like that. And it was an interesting time. I got to hang out with some really cool people and meet some good guys, and so we didn't really have a season in Wayne in 2020. We didn't play.
Right.
We went into the fall. We were ready to go, and then we got told like, no, we're going to push it a week. And then it's like, no, we're not actually going to play at all. So, which honestly might have been a blessing in disguise for us because we were kind of able to redshirt our entire team.
Yeah.
And we had practices and stuff like that fall, but we were able to instill our culture and get the weight room how we wanted to and recruit, and we had official visits in the fall on like Saturdays when others teams were playing.
Yeah, that's
So like a kid would have a game on Friday night and he'd come on an official visit the next day. So we were able to like get a jump on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's so. Who was play? I guess the division.
No one in D2. I don't
Right.
think D3 was.
Yeah, we didn't play anything.
FCS.
I know there were some that
Maybe.
did.
But like that was when like Iowa had a 6-game season that year. Iowa State had that was year Iowa State won the Fiesta Bowl, but I think they were like 9-3 that year, and they played in 2 extra games and everyone else, so they had like
that's right, they did that.
So they had like an 8 or 10 game season, and so it was just really, it was actually kind of cool. I'd come recruit and we'd have visits and I get to watch football,
Yeah.
because as a coach, I mean, this on Saturdays and Sundays, you don't get to watch a lot of football.
Right.
Of like just as a spectator, so that was kind of interesting too. But
I remember, I think it was it was either you or I was telling Joe Evans this. Like, I grew up a Hawkeye fan, and from the time that I started playing college football till the time I was done coaching, the only Iowa football game I ever got to watch was Iowa-Nebraska at the end of the year, and so this year is my first year not coaching. It's like, I'm actually going to watch a couple games this year. But that's so true. You don't if there's a game on at noon, you're probably unless you're playing a night game, I guess.
Yeah,
But you guys ended up winning a conference title.
Yeah, so the first 21 we played 2 spring games, which was really cool. I think D2 does this now. I don't know if D3 does it or not.
I know they do scrimmages, right?
But it's really cool. They can do scrimmages. It's almost like your joint practices in the NFL.
Yeah,
and I wish more teams were able to do that. Like I wish higher level, like Division I, was able to do that as well, because it's essentially like you're doing a controlled practice, whether it's one-on-ones with O-line, D-line, or one-on-ones with DBs and wideouts, and you're doing 7-on-7 against another team. We did like half line, what we call blocks here, what we called pods there. Like we did that against another team. And you'd do that for half hour, and you'd flip. So your offense, their defense, whatever, their offense, your defense, and you kind of split the field. And we opened it to the public. We had people could come and watch and stuff like that. And
are there NSIC schools? Or?
We did it against Nebraska Kearney and Shattern State.
Okay.
And so we would never do an in-conference game, but it was in-state games.
Yeah.
So like it'd be really cool to do something like that going forward. I think I know Mike Gundy said something about doing that. Like if they're not going to play Oklahoma anymore, doing that with Oklahoma in the spring.
Yeah.
If they're not going to play them anymore since they're in the SEC. So just little things like that. But we did it with Shattern and with Kearney, and then that fall in 2021 we played our full season, and it was we got off to it. We were 5-1. We started. We beat Duluth, who was ranked at the time. Then we beat Mankato, who was ranked at the time, and that was like a holy shit moment. Like. And we were down 24-7 going into the fourth quarter, and we won 35-24, I think. We just struck fire and hit a couple big plays and got back into the game, and that was really cool. We ended up finishing the season 7-4, but there was a lot of life there. There was a lot of, okay, this is what we can do. This is what we're going to do. And by the end of that year, we were starting a true freshman left tackle, true freshman quarterback, freshman running back. I think two linebackers that were true freshmen. Like we just had a young group, and all those guys were guys that were freshmen the year that we redshirted everyone during COVID. So then we get to 2022, and we had a little more veteran team, and I said our schedule was a little more favorable because the NSIC, you don't play every team. You play every game's a conference game, but you don't always play every team. And I would say in 22 we had a little bit more favorable schedule. Now we beat the teams we needed to beat, but we didn't have to play Bemidji that year, who beat us the year before, who was a playoff team that year. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But it was, and we went through a coaching change too, which is a big deal because Coach McMiniman left, and Coach Masters is now the head coach at Wayne, who's a great coach, great dude. He's another Iowan. He got promoted to be the head coach, and there wasn't a ton of changeover. There was a little bit of change, but there wasn't a ton of like, okay, we're just cutting bait, we're doing something completely new. So because there had been a blueprint that was set there with Coach Mack, and so we went 9-2 that year. We lost to Augustana with 7 seconds left. They scored in the regular season, little pick wheel. post wheel, but it turned into a pick wheel.
I'll count that.
But
rub. It was a rub wheel, right?
Yeah, whatever. But and they had a good team that year, and it was on the road the first time I had played there. I had played there, and then we beat Mankato in the regular season. We had a really good game that game. We averaged like 9-something yards a play on offense, and then we ended up going back to Mankato for the playoffs, playing up at Mankato, and we played them on a day where it was like 4 degrees. The wind chill was like -11, and they just beat us down. I think they beat us 24-10 or 24. Yeah, but it was like 24-3 most of the game. We scored late. I can't remember exactly what the score was, but they beat us that day. Just they wore on us physically and stuff like that. But it was the first time Wayne had been in the playoffs since 2008. It was the first outright conference title because we shared it. It was the first time they had done that ever. And they had done it one time before where they had won the North, because it used to be North and South in the SIC. It's not. I don't think it is anymore, but. So there's a lot of really cool things that happen during that time period, and they've had success the last couple of years. And Wayne's it's a really cool place right now because of the support they have for their athletics. Mike Powicki's the athletic director, Iowa guy. Very proud Iowan. I am a very proud Iowan.
Yeah, me too, man.
But I love it when other people who are Iowans are affecting other places that maybe aren't in Iowa.
Yeah.
Take
over, baby.
Yep, he's doing a great job, and they just built an indoor. Like they just completely renovated their athletic facility that used to be like 3 different buildings attached by like one hallway. Now it's like all one big building. You know what I mean? So they've done a really cool job and a ton of support out there. But then I wanted to grow and move on and try something new, and Coach Hoskins called me and offered me the O-line job at Simpson, and I said no thank you. Then he called me and a week and a half later and said, hey, do you want to do O-line, but do you want to be the offense coordinator as well? And that was more of something that was appealing to me, right, moving forward in my journey. Got me back closer to home. Simpson was a place that I knew could be good, just from when I was a player and historically, and it's in the Iowa Conference or the ARC now, and that's a proud school of whatever. Plus TK, Tanner Krieger,
yeah.
Shout out Tanner, my dog. He
fellow Simpson QB.
Yep, we hired Tanner at Wayne, and he was from there, and obviously I really have a lot of respect and really like Tanner a lot, and he's probably one of my closest friends now post college, and he was from there, and he loved it, or he's from Waverly, but he loved Simpson.
He loved beating Wartburg too.
Yeah, the Philly special. Get some more mileage out of that, but he it was a really good opportunity, and I trust. Biggest thing was I trusted Reed Hoskins. Like Reed's one of the most genuine, like awesome dudes, and he's a smart ass football coach. And he kind of laid out his plan and what he wanted to do, and I was all about it. You know what I mean? And so it was really cool to be able to go back to Simpson. I came down, I did like an interview, and I talked about patterns and pass concepts and run game stuff, and I'm sure Reed was just like, God, I'm gonna have to help this guy out a ton. But it was really cool because the vision was there, the vision of like making Simpson more of a central Iowa place that draws more Iowa kids and stuff like that. And I met with Coach Bell too. And that was really cool, the athletic director there at Simpson, because he had a really good plan. He said some really cool things that me as a young coach didn't really think about, and I heard him talk about it in his vision, and I was like, God, that's really smart. Like, that's really like, so seeing what he had done, what he was going to do, that kind of stuff. It was really, really intriguing, and it got me back closer to home. Like, all Iowans, whether they say it or not, they're always trying to get back closer to home a little bit if they leave. So, which is good. Which is a good thing. Sometimes you got to leave to be able to come back and stuff like that too. So, yeah, loved every minute I had at Wayne. We had our own challenges, but it's a beautiful little town. People there are amazing. and they got Coach Masters, a good dude, and he, everyone there treated me really, really well. So,
I'm looking now. I'm thinking back through your coaching stops and playing. You won conference championships in the American Rivers Conference.
Yep.
You've won conference championships, CCIW or co-conference championships, CCIW, MAIA, NSIC. So a lot of winning going on for you. What do you think are some of the consistencies within those championship level programs versus maybe some that aren't, maybe at that caliber?
Sure. No, I think a lot of it has to do with me. For me personally, a lot of it has to do with how I was raised, and my parents are competitive people, but for the most part, like my parents are people that taught me like you do what's right and work with people around you and make people around you better. And I think that's also an offensive lineman approach to things. Of like, if you're going to do a good job, like if you want your team to do a good job, you have to do a good job. And if you think someone else is doing a bad job, like you can't do their job for them. So all you can do is do yours better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that was constant at every place I was on. There was good leadership. I've worked for amazing head coaches all across the board. I've worked for the 1, 2, 3-time first-time head coaches, and I've worked for, let me think, 1, 2, 3, 4 head coaches that had at least 15, if not 20 years of head coaching experience. So like from the guys that did it at the start and guys at the end, and every single one of them in their own way did a really good job of delegating as well as using their assistants to try and do things the right way. And I think that's something that I've been very fortunate to have. Same thing with Coach Woodley here. Like, I've worked with coaches that they are on you about everything, and not in like on you, but like, make sure you have this done, make sure you have that done. It's right. Boom. And then you got guys like, and I think Coach Woodley's very much like this. Like, he trusts his assistants. I think no job is too big for any one of his assistants. And I think that's something really cool about Coach Willie. He puts a lot of trust into us as assistants to get things done and to do it right way. And if it's not how he likes it, he's not going to go batshit crazy about it. Like, he's going to be like, all right, this is what I was thinking, and so on. And then we work together with it. And I think every coach I've worked for has had that, to the point of there's been alignment between the administration, alignment between the head coach, and alignment between the assistants. And every single one of those stops where I've had success, if you have all three of those factors rowing in the same direction, going in the same direction, you're going to have success. And I think that's something that I've been very fortunate to be a part of. From when I was a player in high school, because I played for Jerry Pizzetti, who is going into year 58 or something like that, if not, or maybe 60-something as a head coach.
Yeah.
And I played for Coach Willis, Coach Willis was a head coach for, I think, 96 or 97 was his first year, and I had him in 13, so at least 15 to 16 years.
His first year was, I think, 2021, sounds like.
That's when he got out,
I think that's winter. That was Winter's first year.
Yeah, so like Coach Willis was the head coach for at least 15, 16 years at Wartburg, not to mention other places, before I got, there. Mark Hoekstra at Carlisle High School, who I haven't talked enough about because Mark's the man, and he gave me my first job, and I still talk to Mark all the time. He's a phenomenal football coach. He was in year, I think, 12 or 13 or something as a head coach when I was there with him, maybe more. Then I was with Coach Esch, who just got done last year with 37 years head coaching at the same school. Then I was with Coach Boda, who had about 25 years of experience when I got there. Then I was with Coach McMenamin, who was first head coach. Then Coach Masters, first head coach. Then Reed Hoskins, first-time head coach. Right. And then I went and worked for Coach Ferentz,
right,
who's 26 this year, I think. So
all-time leading win.
Yeah. And so but every one of those spots, there's been alignment between the athletic director, the head coach, the assistants, all the way down to the players.
Yeah.
And if you ever lose that, that's when your team gets a little shaky. You gotta do your best to bring that back. And that's why being a head coach is such a hard thing to do. but it's also such a rewarding thing to do because you get to see people work and do great things. So that you hopefully put them in a position to do.
Okay, so let's talk about, obviously, you spent some time at Simpson, got to run your show for a little bit.
Yep.
What was that first experience like, being able to run, the style of system you wanted to run, the plays that you wanted to run, then obviously, get to lead your own unit?
Yep. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing about being an offensive coordinator that I learned, well, I joke about it, but the biggest thing I learned about being an offensive coordinator is that I don't probably want to be an offensive coordinator.
Really? Okay.
But I really enjoyed it. I think I need to learn more about offense, about specifically like the pass game and quarterbacks and stuff like that, quarterback play, to be able to be an effective offensive coordinator someday, or at least a more effective coordinator someday. I will say there's one thing. Calling plays like in a live scenario where where you got to react at what's the down distance and what are they giving you, that kind of stuff. That's like one of the most like fun experiences you can have. But what I learned was I knew I didn't know like certain concepts, certain reads, that kind of stuff, and I wasn't about to try and bullshit anyone with it. So that's why you hire a guy who does know it and does a good job with it, and that's why I hired Robbie, and he interviewed, did a really good job. Plus, I think Robbie is a really proactive person when it comes to learning football, especially from a guy who didn't play football. Like, he goes out of his way to learn and to better himself and that kind of stuff. And I think that's something that's really cool about Robbie, is he's always learning. He's always trying new things and stuff like that. And so hiring him helped me out a ton. And then having Coach Hoskins, who had been an offensive coordinator forever, and worked with quarterbacks and played quarterbacks and stuff like that too. So I think that was the first part, that it was kind of like, okay, like, I can't do this on my own. I don't want to do this on my own. Biggest thing for me was like how I wanted the offense to play was with an attitude. I got a piece of advice that from when I was in high school from one of my wrestling coaches, and it pretty much said, like, if you ever feel overmatched or overwhelmed, turn it into a street fight and you always got a chance. And I say that kind of jokingly, but at the same time, like, what is it? David beats Goliath a lot.
Right.
And not all the time, but, everyone loves an underdog, and underdogs are good because they're hungry and they fight and they have like that kind of gritty approach to, like, we're gonna give you everything you got, or everything we got, and stuff like that. And so I wanted our guys to have that mentality, and going into Simpson, we had a very limited roster when we got there. We had some experience, but it wasn't like...
It was in a tough spot. I mean, it was.
Yeah, and it just, with some of the guys we had, I think there was a lot of promise, a lot of guys that were going to be good players that ended up being good players the last couple of years for them. But it was just one of those things where, regardless of what was done before, I wanted to make sure our kids had an attitude of, we're going to hit you in the mouth. And when the other team leaves, they might have beat us, but they're going to remember, like, playing us. They're going to be sore. They're going to be like, damn, I don't want to play those guys again. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't get into another game like that. Like, we wanted to beat you up best we can, okay? Because we weren't at the point where we could physically dominate, and we had athletically talented kids that could overpower you, And that's why you recruit. You recruit players to replace the players you have and be better than the ones you have on your team. And so that was my biggest emphasis, was operationally and that kind of stuff, getting to that point where we can have all the stuff we can control down to a intensity and a sharpness of, like, okay, we're not going to beat ourselves with pre-snap penalties. We're not going to beat ourselves by jumping off sides. We're not going to beat ourselves by not lining up. And then letting guys go out and play. Because another piece of advice I got a long time ago is, don't overcoach kids. They're there for a reason. Like, they got to college football because of, like, they didn't get to college football because they were bad players. Mm-hmm. They got there because they're good players. Like, let them play ball. And there's a lot of technique that goes into a lot of stuff and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you got to let a kid be a kid, and you got to let him go out and go. And and just having that mindset, that intensity of, okay, what can we control? We can control how we line up, the sharpness of our break with a huddle. We can control how quickly we get up to the line of scrimmage, and then we can control our attitude we go into a play. And then after that, all the rest of it's coaching stuff, whether it's, okay, this is what we're doing on this play, this is what we're doing, and that comes with reps. And I think that was my biggest approach, was making sure our guys went out there and played physical to the point where, okay, I'm going to get after the defense. I might be smaller, I might be slower, but they're not going to want to go against me. And I've always had that approach with guys, because you can do so much with a guy that's hungry like that. Like, one of the best football players I've ever coached in my life was a defensive end at Carlisle High School who was 6 foot, 180 pounds.
I love that.
And he was just, to quote one of I think Coach Cox said earlier, he was a junkyard dog.
Oh yeah.
Like he just got after kids, and he was playing with a purpose. He was playing because I don't know, we struck a chord or something like that, and he just went. And he was a phenomenal football player, and he never played football again after high school, which is fine. But he had an attitude and he had a motor, and that's what made him a really good player. Overcome his physical ailments, if you would. And by physical ailments, I mean he was not very tall and not very big.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing, I think, at Simpson for me, because it's not like overnight we were going to get, a roster that's going to compete physically with Wartburg or or Central, or those programs that have been established. But that's not to say we can't let them know the attitude in which we play with and set a precedent on this is how we're going to play. Mm-hmm. And so that was my biggest focus. Was it right? Was it wrong? I don't know. But that's to me, that's how the attitude of your team and how they play, that's going to take you a long way. The old saying of X's and O's, or Jimmy's and Joe's are more important than X's and O's and stuff like that. There's a lot of truth to that in the sense of how your kids go out and play. Or what is it in Remember the Titans? He's like, I run 6 plays. It's like Novocaine, give it time, it always works. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you got to be that one-dimensional or anything like that, but your attitude and your belief and your kids' belief in what you're doing has to be number one. In my opinion.
Doubt about it.
So
that's no question.
So I enjoyed it, but
obviously, had unbelievable opportunity to go play for a team that is physically dominating in the Iowa Hawkeyes. How did that come about? How did that job kind of transpire?
I knew there was going to maybe be an opening. I didn't know for sure or when or whatever. It kind of, as a coach, you always have you have your eyes on certain spots that are like, okay, that'd be really cool. And one of my goals professionally when I got into coaching was to coach the University of Iowa at some point and try and do that. And so I wanted to do that, and there was an opportunity that came open, and I talked to some people, and I texted Coach Burnett, the O-line coach at Iowa, and I said, hey, I'd be interested in being your assistant. And he was like, his response literally was like, leaving an OC to go do this, are you crazy? That's what he responded to me. And I said, maybe, but I want a chance to learn. I want a chance to focus on that group, because that's professionally what I want to be, as an O-line guy, an O-line coach.
There's not a lot of better places to do that.
Correct. And they have a pedigree, and they have a way they do things, and I knew a lot of people that spoke really highly of Coach Burnett, and I knew him a little bit. I'd met him at camps and stuff like that, but not enough to just call him up and be like, hey, what's going on? I would never do that anyway. He's not like that kind of guy. So, but I was able to connect with him, and then have a couple people reach out on my behalf, and it was a longer process because they were in middle spring ball. We were in the middle of spring ball, and I went over there and interviewed. And if you get a chance, ask Jason Martinez about that weekend, if you would, because him and I had to work at camp at Simpson on a Sunday, and it was about 33 degrees and snowing.
Oh my God.
And we were there all day in the snow, and then I drove over to Iowa City that night. But it was just funny. And I did like an interview, if you want to call it that. It was I think it was pretty much so they just knew I could walk and talk, in person and stuff like that. And a couple days later, I got the job offered to me, and I took it and told the team at Simpson that day, and left a couple days later. So, but it was a really cool experience. It was just getting over there to meet people, talk with people. I grew up a Hawkeye fan. I went to Iowa games growing up, and I'd worked camps over there previously.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd been in the building, but not like in an official capacity by any means. And so it was just a really cool opportunity for me to go learn like offensive line. And not even necessarily like football in general. Like yes, that was a big part of it, but like development and growth and approach to playing and coaching offensive line. Like just the amount of people they've had go through there, the amount of success they've had. They teach things, they do things a little bit differently up front wise, and it's a little more simplistic way, in my opinion, of like it's fundamental based. Like that's what it is. Like they're not teaching per se, this is how we're going to block. We're doing this drill because that's how we're going to block this counter play. It's like we're doing this drill because that's how you're going to block.
Right.
Like there's no sugarcoating it, and there's no trying to get fancy or this and that. Like you get really good at blocking fundamentals, and it was just a really really good opportunity for me, and so I went. So
I can imagine that experience was incredible. I mean, one of the things that I've always appreciated about how Iowa does things, and we talked about this a little bit, that the only Iowa football games that I was able to go to were Iowa, Nebraska. And so this past season I went to Iowa, Nebraska, which was a cold one. It's always a freaking cold one during that time of the year. But I remember very distinctly, like, the crowd was getting a little restless because, like you said, University of Iowa does things a little bit differently, and they don't care, at least my perception of it, they do not care that you think that we should do things a certain way. We're going to do it our way. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, like, it's just one of those examples with that team that, like, they kept doing it their way and ran the football and played good defense. And like I said, fans were probably getting a little restless, but like at the end of the day, played good defense, ran the football well, and came out on top. And that's kind of the theme of that unit. And what would be, if you could just put a couple things on it, what would you say are the biggest things that you learned from Coach Ferentz and Coach Barnett, and just that experience in general? What were kind of the key things that you learned?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and I guess I'd always known this, but like it was emphasized there, was like, don't put your players in a bad position. Mm-hmm. Don't put your, and you can't help it sometimes, because the defensive guys they're calling the game too. It's not like this is what they're going to do, so we know exactly what they're going to do. But at the same time, don't put your players in a bad position. Also, the biggest thing I learned there is if there is a bad play, if there is something that goes wrong, like everywhere, it's like flush it or whatever. But a game is a football game's a long time, and if you are hung up on the first third down that you guys don't get, or that you don't get because of this or that, like that cannot affect the rest of the game. Like that cannot even affect how you come off the field. It's one of those things where both those coaches you mentioned, and including Brian Ferentz, who was phenomenal to work for, and Tim Lester, who's the new offensive coordinator this past year, who's phenomenal. All those guys they emphasize, the football game is longer than one play. It's longer than one series. And I'm not saying it's okay to like go 3 and out or anything like that, but if that happens, come onto the sideline, talk about what happened, move forward, and then go after it the next time. Like there's so much that goes into a football game that you never know what's going to happen, when's going to happen. Like that Nebraska game you're talking about. Yeah. Like the one play that sparked the whole thing, like we're not calling that to get a 75-yard touchdown.
Right.
We're calling that to get Caleb Johnson on the perimeter and get him one-on-one with some maybe smaller guys. And then we had a great block by Nick DeYoung on that play on the perimeter, and Nick was starting because of injuries, and Nick wasn't even supposed to be pretty much playing in that game, but he did, and he had a phenomenal block on the perimeter. And then you let Caleb do what put your players in good position to win, and he went and won on some one-on-ones and kept going, and then all of a sudden it sparks the game, and we're back at it. And I think that's the biggest thing I learned from them is like, you cannot let those the ailments or the bad things, or if something happens, you know what I mean, affect anything. Like, it happened, you got to move on. And I think that's something that's really, really cool. Like, yeah, guys get worked up, they get upset, this or that, but at the same time, like, they're back to it because there's a lot of game left. There's a lot more going on, and I think that's something that's proven with the track record there at Iowa on their success as a team, because it is a team game. Like you talked about, like defense, special teams, off. Like, there's 3 phases of the game, and no phase is more important than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have good players on one side or versus the other, you play to the strengths of those players. And I think that's something that Coach Ferentz does a really, really good job of trusting his assistants, but guys in the best positions to win.
I want to talk about kind of now that you're back in you're leading the unit. Obviously, you're in this role now. I want to talk about your philosophy as a coach. One of the things that I think is important as a coach is treating different players, or I would say not treating, but coaching different players differently. And how do you kind of adapt your coaching style to kind of fit around the group of guys that you're with, different players? Is that something that you even think about? Are you trying to treat everybody the same, or kind of how do you approach that?
Yeah, no, there is definitely a way to, or a method to working with different kids differently. But at the same time, I think that's another thing I learned at Iowa is, like, if you do your due diligence in recruiting, and if you, if you talk to the kid, see him at camp, get him here for a game, get him here for a junior day, talk to his high school coach, talk to another one of his coaches, talk to someone, and I'm not saying they do this for every kid or do this for every kid, but talk to someone in the community that knows him, talk to a teacher. There's so much you can do in recruiting right now that if you take a kid or if you have a kid come play for you and he surprises you with something, that's very rare in my opinion. And I think if you recruit the right way and you don't chase kids because of who else is recruiting them. Like, if you want to recruit kids that are sought after and stuff like that, because it means they're a good player. But you don't want to recruit kids that they're only in it to get recruited. And if you do it the right way, then how you coach them can be pretty much like, you can be authentic, you can be yourself. And I think people in general, kids and people in general, want authenticity, because at the end of the day, if you try and fake something, or if you try and treat one guy versus another, that stuff gets noticed. And that's how you're going to lose respect from other people. That's how you lose respect from your team. Like, if you're yourself the whole time, then you're going to have success. And whether that's success at a D3 school, high school, Division I, NFL, whatever, like, if you're yourself, you're never going to walk away. Even if you get fired or if you have a bad game or something, you're never going to walk away and be like, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have said that. And I think with players, it's the same way. It's like, it's trial and error at the same time. But if you recruit the right way, and if you recruit kids being authentic in who you are and don't try and be something you're not, then you can treat them all however they want to be treated. And I'm not saying, like, do whatever with them, but, like, they're going to know who you are before they even step in the room. And they're going to know what they're going into. They're going to know the style of coach you are. They're going to know what's going on. And that's going to allow you to coach hard and to have relationships that are rooted deeper with these kids and with these players. And I think that's something also I learned more so. I saw it come to fruition more of, like, okay, there's a standard, and we won't recruit below this standard. And it's not even like a football standard per se. And this is just everywhere. It's, yeah, that you want guys that are really talented, really good players, but you want guys that are going to fit in your room, fit in your team, and gel with the culture you want to have and the ability to do what you want to do, if that makes sense. So,
you've been obviously you were an offensive lineman, you've coached offensive linemen. What do you think, if you could just put it, one thing on it, two things on it, what do you think makes a good offensive lineman, just in general?
Yeah. So I think toughness is huge. Being selfless is huge, because I always tell people playing on pass protection as an offensive lineman is the hardest thing to do in sports, and I might get backlash on that, but you're literally backpedaling, not knowing where the guy is you're supposed to be protecting is behind you. You have an idea, but you never know with quarterbacks. And
That's for sure.
yeah, and
those guys suck.
you have a more athletic, probably faster, maybe not stronger, but maybe sometimes stronger person running full speed forward at you, and you have to stop them. Like you have nothing going in your favor outside of outside of the clock, if you would.
Right.
And I think it takes a special type of person to want to do that for a career.
Yeah.
It takes a selfless type of person. And one big thing, one really, really big thing, I think, is gratitude. I think good offensive linemen, good players in general, but good offensive linemen have to be grateful for what they're doing. They have to be grateful for their family, for the opportunity they have to play on a team, the opportunity they have to be with their friends, the opportunity they have to get an education, the opportunity they have to, play a game, essentially. Like, I think that's a huge piece of any offensive lineman, is you have to be grateful to go out there and do something that not a lot of people want to do. And you have to look at it that way, because that's going to make you successful. Because if you have a bad attitude at that position, any position, you have a bad attitude, you're going to be a bad player. And you're not going to last. And then you're going to be wondering why, like, what's wrong, what's this or that. And at the end of the day, it's like you have a bad attitude. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully, the lineman, a good offensive lineman, is tough, a little nasty. You want your guys to be kind of an asshole, And what you're gonna get, your traditional good offensive lineman is gonna be an asshole on the field, and he's gonna be the biggest sap mama's boy off the field.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm living proof of that. My mom is the best, and I know she's gonna watch this. I hope she stays for the whole hour entirety.
Yeah.
She is the best, and
we'll be sure to clip it.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely, she love it. But she is amazing, and I'm a teddy bear around her, and. But all good offensive line, and I'm not even saying I'm a good offensive lineman. That's who I am.
Yeah, two-time all-conference. Jeez.
Yeah. But
that's so true. Our mutual connection, Scott O'Dario. He was a center. He was our center. My sophomore junior year, and I hadn't played up to this point, but in this particular game, but we were going into halftime, and. Me as the backup quarterback, I'm all like, "Hey, good game so far, Scott." And he's like, "Don't talk to me. I need to be an asshole for another half hour."
Yeah.
And then I ended up playing in that game, and then, after the game, he's like, "Hey, Seth, you did so good." I'm like, "Oh, okay, hour's up." So that's absolutely the truth. I do not want to step on any O lineman's toes, literally and figuratively, during the game, but afterwards they're.
Yeah. And I think you can have a little attitude after the game too, or off the field, but at the same time, your O lineman, as something again I learned at Iowa, and how they look at kids and look at people. Like, your offensive linemen, they're people pleasers, and you want them to be, because it's a service job,
no doubt.
You know what I mean? And they're gonna want to do what's best for that. You're gonna have a lot of people I know, like Tanner gives me shit all the time, Krieger. Just in general, hey, where do you want to go eat, or do you want to go golf somewhere? I'll be, I don't care, wherever. Yeah. It's just whatever. You just tell them where to go, I'll be good. And a lot of offensive linemen are going to be like that, because it's not that they truly don't care. It's like they want to please you. They want to serve. They want to be someone who isn't a problem, isn't an issue, and helps out the team and helps out the group. So.
Yeah, as a former quarterback, I am like, I'm kind of the one that's like, hey, we're going to go play here. We're going to go eat here. Like, that's what Definitely need to have a little bit more palm up energy for sure at times. But there's no doubt about that. When it comes to building a run game every week, obviously you're at a new stop here. Haven't really gone through the game planning process here per se, but you have it other places. Where does your head go when it comes to building that plan? What are some of the things that you are trying to look at when it comes to, not necessarily what plays you're going to run, but what are some of the things that you're looking at within the defense that you're like, okay, I'm looking for this. I'm trying to figure this out. What's kind of your motto when it comes to that?
Yeah, so a couple of things. What are we good at? Okay, players, formations, plays. What players do we have that are good? What formations can we put them in to make them successful, and what plays can we run out of those formations, stuff like that. But okay, what are our top run schemes? Whether it's wide zone, pin and pull, power, counter, jet sweep, whatever it is, our top schemes are. How can we put ourselves in good positions to run those when we have numbers? Number one, where we have good matchups. Like I've tried running pin and like at Simpson, like we tried running pin and pull that spring, but against like that whatever you want to call Jason's defense,
chaos defense. Yeah. I've heard it called. He calls it the mayhem defense.
Yeah. Well, let's not fluff him up too much. But whatever you want to call that, pin and pull was not a good play to it because they slant all the time, they blitz all the time. It just wasn't a great look for what we tried to do, so we stopped doing it. And we went to more of like a true like tight end wing or a tight end counter or tight end gap scheme where we were still able to pull a guy and kick guys out and do that kind of stuff. But just how can we put our players in the best position to succeed, whether it's a down block, whether it's a crack block, whether it's a fade route, whether it's a post, whether it's a hitch, whatever. Like how can we, with our scheme that we're good at, put guys in a position to be successful, whether it's with motions, shifts, trades, whether it's with tempo, whether it's with personnel. How can we put our guys in the best position to be successful? And in the run game, it's all about matchups. Up front, on the perimeter, running back who has the ball. Like your matchups are going to win you the game. And if you try and do something that you're not good at, it's going to get exposed. It's going to get exploited. Like there's a lot of times where it's like, oh, shit, that didn't work, or oh, he got whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, it was a good call. We got beat physically. Like we athletically got beat. And you look at those and you're like, okay, I don't want to do that again. And then you learn. That's how you learn. That's how you do things. And so, but like game planning wise, attacking a defense wise, look at what has the defense struggled with, who are their best players, who are the guys that aren't as good. What can we do within our scheme that what we've done that's successful that puts them in ailments? And if we can do one thing and maybe had a wrinkle to it to where no one's seen it before, that's another cool thing. When I was at Central Mo, we played Missouri Western week 3, and I think we had 95 offensive plays going into that game between two games that were with like our first group. Because I told you we won a game that was and 95 plays just in general. I'm not saying different plays, but 95 plays. And I think out of those 95 plays, we had 79 different formations.
Oh, my goodness.
In 2 weeks. And that's a lot, and that's a little much, but at the same time, like, if you put yourself in the perspective of a defensive coach, that makes them struggle. Or if you get a coach who does it now, then you get coaches who kind of just will make blanket calls and that can fit a lot of different things, which, then that becomes that part of that chess match. But being able to put our guys in different looks in different situations that they're doing the same exact thing that they're always doing, and then practicing them and going on there. So it's just not overloading guys, doing stuff that they're familiar with, but maybe giving them a different look or giving a different thing. And then there's that method or that element of creativity that I think you always have to have. Okay, what's something that we maybe haven't done that fits into our scheme? Or maybe we practiced in the spring, but we never did it, whatever. One thing we did at Central Mo in the spring, we never ran in the fall, was quads power read, empty quads power read.
Oh, yeah. Love that.
And we did it in the spring, and we never did it in the fall. I was kind of upset. So with motion guys and this and that, but just little things that what can we do that we already do out of formations or sets that we already are good at, and then how can we attack the defense? What have they struggled with or something like that? So.
Well, one thing I'm curious about is throughout your career so far up to this point, is there a defensive structure or a scheme or a look that has given you maybe not giving you the most fits, but is there one that comes to mind where you're like, oh my gosh, I hope I never have to see that again?
I mean, there's a lot of popularity with certain fronts, and everyone does them a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when I was at, well, I guess I coached defense at Westland, so it's whatever. But when I was a defensive, let's start there. When I was a defensive coach, we were in what's called a stick front. We would mid-play motion to a 3-man front and drop a guy out mid-cadence. So we'd go from a 4 down to a 3 down in a true like odd front that had different interior pressures on it. And we'd do that out of nickel, we'd do it out of too high, we'd do it whatever. And so it was just another element of like, okay, we're switching things up completely on the front side. Now, when I was at Central Mo, it was the crush front. You know, that's the big buzzword in Division II, Division III. And Northwest Missouri State kind of, I don't know if they invented it, but they kind of did. And it was always struggle because they had 4 defensive linemen that were bigger and better than everyone we had on offense.
Right.
And when you have that, it allows they take, you know, if you need 6 guys to block 4, like, you know, you got to come up with something. So we played that a few times, and we struggled with it, but we had some really good stuff too. You just got, you know, it's about execution and stuff like that. We had a really good plan there, and then we went to Wayne, and there we saw a few of those crush fronts as well, and we were successful against some, not against others. And then, like I know Wartburg runs it really, really well now, and
they're very good at it.
And then you know, I got to Iowa, and you know, Iowa State's defense.
Yeah,
it's unique, and you watch tape and you're like, man, how come so and so's
legal?
How come so and so's not just running off tackle to the right here and going for
right?
Well, then it's because this guy's a 4 and he's slanting this way, and they're bringing this guy. Then the middle safety just shows up and he's just there, and so we had a few creative ways to attack it, but you just never know, you know, and it's so unique, and when it comes to stuff like that, and then you play a team like Ohio State this past year. I mean, Ohio State didn't do anything fancy. The guy who was there came from that kind of 3 high safety tree, but he get to Ohio State and he's got 4 D linemen that are studs, and he's got linebackers that are awesome, and he's got 2 DBs that could be probably playing middle linebacker at most other schools, and they just kind of kept it simple and just were better than us physically, you know, for the most part, and not all the time, but that's what they were, and so it's just everywhere is a little different, you know, and then like Jason's defense, Simpson, like that's unique, and I know St. Thomas runs something very similar to that in this league, so it'll be fun to scheme that up and see how much movement they got and do that kind of stuff, and it'll be exciting, because if it was easy like that, it wouldn't be any fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it was easy, then it wouldn't be the work. Easy work is not work worth doing, in my opinion. And so that's something I'm looking forward to. And they're every level, every year, there's something different, some type of wrinkle. So
that's stretch.
Yeah, that thing's had that thing on there for a while.
That's all right.
So
I don't. I'd rather like switch to this view and
Yeah.
let you keep going, but that's perfectly fine.
So
Okay, so last little segment here, last 2 little segments here. This first one is Q's starting 5 is what I'm calling it.
Okay.
Okay, and so you're gonna fill in. You have 5 different picks of 5 different categories.
Okay.
And you get to pick one in each one.
Okay.
So I'll just give them to you first. You get 1 run scheme, 1 pass concept, 1 pre or post game meal.
Okay.
1 sideline item, whether it's a hat, whistle, whatever the case is, and then you get 1 player of your whole career that you've coached.
Oof. Okay. First one was what? Run scheme?
1 run scheme.
Pin and pull is my favorite run scheme.
I love you for that.
I mean, I played center,
Yeah.
so I pulled all the time, and when I played, we could cut wherever we wanted to on the field, and there's nothing more fun than coming around the corner, good pin block by the tight end, coming around the corner, and then going and cutting like a safety or something. You know, I've had flip sides. I show a picture to every offensive line, and I can send it to you. You can like put it in.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I've showed a picture to every offensive line I have I buried a safety from Monmouth my senior year on a pin and pull play, and 2 plays later we ran to the opposite direction.
Oh yeah.
And he was there again, and I was like, I got you. You know, you're we know how this story ends. And then he did like a hi hat into a cut, and the only thing that was touching was my forehead on the ground. So, and I can send the picture too. It's not very flattering to me, but people get a kick out of it.
As a quarterback pass game guy, the last few years of being a coach and starting to get dialed into the run game, it has been like a great joy of mine to like learn as much as I can, like the intricacies of what makes run game click. And pin pull has been like the thing that River Falls did it a lot. Definitely did it at Simpson too this past year, but I love that you said that.
No, we did it a ton at Wartburg as a player, and then Central Mo is where I really like learned. Okay, this is how we run this play, because we did it out of 20, we did it out of 10, 11, 21. We ran it with jets. We read the different interior guys. We read the end. We read the linebacker, and then we did it at Wayne too. And it was a really good play, and it always has been. So in my opinion,
yeah, pass concept.
Number 1 pass concept. This sounds offensive line-ish, but there's 4 verts, which is always great.
Hey, I just did a show with the air raid with one of the guys from the air raid from Coastal Carolina, and that was his too.
There's 4 verts. There's all hitches, which is fun because it's a
Boyer's
quick pass.
favorite too.
It gets the ball out quick.
Boyer loves all hitch. He was a JVOC, and like I would help him out with pass concepts, and he was just like, he was kind of we got 3 plays guy. He's like tight zone left, tight zone right, and all hitch is a good one. So it's always my favorite one.
There's play action. You know, we ran cross country is what a scheme we called it at Central Mo. I mean, it's double post with a crosser.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I think back to Central Mo because I coached tight ends there, and I did more of the work. I was more focused in that area in the sense of like getting our guys to do stuff. We had a play called Bananarama we ran, and it was essentially we'd motion from 2x2 to 3x1, ran smash out of 1 and 2 to the field. The tight end was the one who motioned over into the hip.
Okay.
And we ran power read, play action fake, or power play action fake. The back was to the flat to the field. They ran smash 1 and 2. The solo receiver on the backside ran like a deep, skinny post, a take route, if you would, where he's trying to get across the safety. And the tight end ran heel line and then underneath.
Oh, geez.
And then wheeled up right outside the linebackers and caught the ball over his inside shoulder. And we ran it like 2 or 3 times a year and got like 30 yards each time.
Was that a tempo call?
No.
Oh, it wasn't?
It was line up and go.
Oh,
and because we'd shift over, ride the fake, he'd set up, we'd have, smash to the field, back was the outlet, and then the post. If the post didn't if the corner sat, then he would move back to the field side. But you're looking for that guy, and we ran it, and then like 2 weeks later the Chiefs ran it.
Oh, geez.
And
I bet they're watching. I mean,
Coach Sabota and Eric Bieniemy, who's the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, are like really good friends.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not saying he said this or that, but we watched we're like, what the hell,
Give some credit. Because hopefully they called it a mule or.
No, I don't know what they called it, but there's that play, and then our best play we had that year when I was a tight ends coach was because we had a guy who can do it. We ran smash, but the boundary corner was always a double move.
Oh, okay.
And so we'd get too high, and he'd run a double move.
That's always a good option.
He had probably 600 yards receiving on that play alone.
Oh, geez.
So so there are a lot of cool concepts I remember from that year, just because we averaged 340 yards passing a game or something like that. So
there's got to be a few good ones in there, right?
Yeah, there was some, and we played a lot of unique defenses, and we played a lot of coaches that are really good defensive coaches. And like I remember we played Emporia, and Emporia's D coordinator was just got let go. He's at Charlotte now, but he was Oklahoma State's D coordinator for the last 2 years. And I remember he came out of the box and told Johnny Mack, like, I gave you everything I had.
That's got to feel pretty good.
We scored 38 points and had 600 yards of offense that game or something like that.
Oh my gosh,
So
that's ridiculous.
But it was really fun. So
pre/post game meal that you choose. Some people don't like to eat before games.
I mean, I don't know. Last 2 years I'd have a coffee and a Diet Coke before.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
So
the fridge cigarette, it's called on social media now.
The fridge cig?
Fridge cig, yeah.
Is what it's
It's
called?
a Diet Coke.
Wow.
That's what I'm hearing. I'm not as up to date on the lingo now that I've been out of coaching for like
that's news to me.
6 months, but
I'll run with it.
Fridge cig, yeah.
I'll run with it. Yeah, coffee and a Diet Coke, depending on the temperature of the game. And I was in the press box the last 2 years, so it wasn't. I would sit up there for a while before the game and just kind of hang out. So, but food-wise, I mean, I don't know, whatever's available.
It's probably been different over the years.
Yeah.
Like Wartburg was probably a little different than Iowa.
Yeah, Wartburg was. I didn't have anything special, just whatever we had. And
over to the nice little
the
dining
Mensa,
hall that you guys
the
had.
Mensa, and Central Mo. We had pregame meals at whatever was the hotel and stuff like that. And same thing with Westland would be whatever they have available, and
you got to go get that dough. What's the pizza place over there?
Here?
Yeah,
Doco.
Yeah, Doco. You gotta
I've yet to have it, but I heard it's really good.
Yeah.
So
I think they have a couple players. Like the women's basketball team has like some NIL deals going on.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Staple sideline item. I don't know. I just threw this one in. You got like some special socks?
You didn't ask my post-game meal.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
People are going to watch this podcast and say he's only going to talk about a pregame meal, not a post-game meal.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, I don't really have one, but what I was going to say is when I was coaching at Carlisle, when I would head home after the game, there's only one place that was open. It was Bebop's.
Oh, gee, that's a pull. I love that.
So Bebop's Burger, Fry, and Shake every Friday night.
I kind of want to stop there on my way home now.
There's a free pub,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, maybe we'll sponsor by Bebop's.
There you go.
Love
God,
that.
I sounded so fat saying that right now. But okay, next question.
The staple sideline item. Are you a cutoff guy?
No. When I was at Wayne, I had a yellow polo.
Okay.
And I was the only one who wore it, and it was bright. And we kept winning when I was wearing it, so I wore it.
You couldn't take it off. Yeah.
I like vests. If I got a good vest, I can wear. But
Coach Hoskins is a big vest guy too.
Big vest and big visor. Vest and
big visor
for
guy,
Coach Hoskins,
huge visor guy.
But just whatever. The one thing I've appreciated for the most part of all the coaches I work for is none of them are. You got to wear this, and this. Like, I thought being at Iowa, like that first game, everyone had a white polo on and slacks, and then I was like, wait a minute, like, coach is wearing that because that's what he likes to wear.
Yeah.
Like, everyone doesn't have to wear that, and he is the first person to tell you, like, you don't have to wear what he's wearing.
Yeah.
So it was like, I think I've really appreciated, like, just wear what you're comfortable. Like Coach Sabota wore like a t-shirt, like a nice t-shirt and nice pants. Coach Mack wore the hot jacket. Coach Ash had a ritual. He wore the same jacket with like a sweatband thing that he had from a player or something from 25 years ago. Like, he wore the same thing, and then Coach kind of just wears, if it gets any type of cold out, he'll throw on like sweatpants, and he'll probably be wearing a sweatshirt that no one else has because it's from a long time ago or something, or it's a really cool sweatshirt that he only had for him. And
Coach Ferentz, he kind of seems like the most tough human being ever, because like I watch him on like a game day, and maybe he's got some secret layers underneath, because he's
I don't think
he's got
so.
like sweatpants and hoodie in like the coldest weather I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't think so. He's moving around.
Yeah.
And, you're spot on about him being tough, because he is a tough dude. Like,
oh my gosh.
Like he's a tough dude.
Yeah.
So
they were having my senior year. I went to one of their eval camps, and I went all 4 days in a row.
Oh, nice.
Because I wanted to be like, hey, I'm for real.
Yeah.
Turns out it's okay. They didn't want the 5'11",
sure,
170-pound quarterback, but I was like, I'm gonna go every single day. I'm gonna shake Kirk Ferentz's hand every single day.
Yeah.
So maybe he remembers that.
No, he's the man.
He's
the man. So,
and then this probably unbelievably hard, but you get one player.
I've had a lot. I'm not gonna say one because I have a lot, but I have certain guys pretty much from each team that I've been with. When I was at Carlisle, my two guys were Cooper Shetler and Nate Ramirez. Cooper ended up going to play at Pitt State and was like a 2-3 year starter in the O-line, and Nate was the guy I told you about who was a hellacious player and never played after that. And then I had at Westland, I had a couple guys, none that really stuck out a ton with me because I had like 35 of them. You know what I mean? But there was definitely a few guys that I was closer with there. Like Carson Anderson was an offensive lineman that didn't start the year and then started and ended up doing a really good job. And like his first start, we beat. And I wasn't even coaching the offensive line. I just related to him because he's a good kid. And we beat Wheaton, who we shouldn't have beat, and that year. And it was his first start, and he was going up against this like really good dude, and he didn't give up a sack, so that was really cool. Chase Bandelik's a guy that I haven't talked to in a while, but I still follow him on social media. He's like an Ironman runner now or something. He was a linebacker. Just a bunch of really good dudes on that team that were really good. Like they're D3 guys, you know what I mean? They're really good students, good football players, nothing flashy, nothing crazy, but just good dudes. All wanted to play ball, wanted to get a job, and go work after it. So,
yeah.
And they're all successful adults right now. Central Mo would have been Zach Davidson. Plays for Buffalo. I still talk to Zach once every other week, probably. So really happy for him. He's living the dream and doing it and sticking it out in Buffalo. And by sticking it out, like he's earned the right to be there. And like he was just at Josh Allen's wedding. Like what? So, but just really good dude. And he pushes me as a coach, like because of his effort and his grit and his everything and how he is as a he's a husband, he's a father and how he is about all that stuff. So that's really cool. And then we get to Wayne and shit. I mean, I can name a bunch. Like first guy I can think about at Wayne was like Ryan Kennedy. Ryan's from Norwalk. Ryan coaches at Norwalk, teaches at Norwalk now. Ryan was probably the leader of that room when I got there, and he's a local guy, so we know a lot of same guys, and just a really good dude. And he was a really good player. Got hurt. All conference player, coming back for senior year, stud, going to be a stud. Got hurt in the second half of the first game of the season. Didn't play the rest of the year. Ended up coming back for the next year, but he wasn't the same after that. And then you got guys like Randy Gale and Alex Lindsay and the Gray brothers. Those are the five that I had that year for the most part. And my guy Jet, Jet Jansen, he's just like, he was my first recruit at Wayne. And he ended up starting at left tackle for 4 years in a row.
Good one.
From a freshman to when he's senior. Didn't get any bigger or during pretty much that course of those 4 years. He was like 260 pounds. But Jet embodies what I want, what you want as an offensive lineman, because he is an absolute stud off the field, just nice dude, competitor. He's the only player I've ever had to tell to be quiet on the field because the refs have come over to me and said he's talking shit and like being almost too aggressive. And that's what made him such a good player. Plus he was athletic and he's got a great family, and he's teaching, I think, and coaching now over in Omaha, and really he's gotten all skinny now. Everyone goes corporate when they leave me. They get skinny and lose all the weight and stuff like that too. But then the year I coached tight ends there, I had 4 tight ends in the whole room.
Wow.
That's it, the whole season. So we had Dane Peterson, who's still there, who's a stud. Lane Vanderwall, who Lane's coaching at Dakota Valley, I think. He's a GA there now. Trey Miller, who now plays for Louisiana Lafayette. He just transferred there for like his grad year. And then we had my man Gage Dingle, who was the best one out of all of them. Just a tough ass, like smartest football player I've ever coached.
Wow.
Yep, smartest football player I've ever coached. Just tough, smart, didn't wear gloves.
Oh, that's even better. I bet you love that.
You just gritty, like had to play as a true freshman and played all the way through. Probably could have done another year, I think, but chose not to because he's he's a business guy now and doing his own thing, and just a tough dude who will do anything for the team and make plays when you need him to. You need 6, Gage will get you 7 type thing. Stuff like that. So, and then like even at Simpson, like the Simpson O-lineman I had, like Joe Bream sticks out. Because Joe reminded me of Ryan a little bit, reminded me of some other guys that I work with that are just kind of like maybe undersized, but they're warriors in the weight room, do what you need them to do. They're good leaders, and they like to hit people. You know what I mean? Like Joe, I wasn't going to put Joe at fullback, but I'm glad he got the opportunity.
He got in there a couple times.
Yep. And then the last couple of years, like I was very fortunate at Iowa to have the same exact room for the most part both years. Like there was two kids, I think. There's 3 that left after that 23 season.
Wow.
Everyone else came back. And I still talk with a lot of them, and like I'll be over there tomorrow night for a camp or whatever. I don't know when this is going to air, but and I see them all and work with them all, and a bunch of really good dudes, and they emulate what you would think an Iowa offensive lineman is, and what you'd want in your offensive line room too. They're tough, they're smart, they're physical, and they play football and they play together as a unit, and FTR for the room. So
love it. Last question here. What's one piece of advice that you would give to a younger coach, a player that's looking to get into it in the profession?
Yeah, I'd say biggest thing is, one, don't be afraid to do any job. You're not above any job. You're not below any job. Like you're not, as a young coach, like you have to show the biggest thing young coaches don't have going for them is experience. And you don't have to be at Alabama to have really good experience. You don't have to be in the NFL to have really good experience. You have to work, and you have to work well with what you're asked to do. And I think it's harder for like a lower level coach to climb that ladder. But at the same time, if you're doing really good work and you're working well with other people, like one of the people that I can thank the guy who's gotten me most of my jobs, because was a guy I met when I was a high school teacher at Carlisle. Mm-hmm. Like he is the reason I got my Central Missouri job. He is one of the reasons why I got the Iowa job. Like he is a guy that I didn't even really work with him a ton. I showed up and I did a good job, and we're very like-minded when it comes to that. And he saw that how I work and how I am and how I am about what I do, and that has carried more weight than anything I've done as a coach in my entire life. And you meet those people along the way. Like Reed Hoskins, I can thank Reed just as much as anyone. I know Reed wasn't like kicking down doors trying to get me out of Simpson, but when I had the opportunity at Iowa, Reed is a guy who I can thank just as much as anyone. I had only worked for him really for 4 months to get that job. And so it's one of those things where don't be afraid to do anything or do anything, And if you really want to do it, you got to do it. You can't half-ass it. You can't be halfway there, halfway not. Like if you're going to do it, you got to do it. Otherwise, it's not for you. Mm-hmm. And I always thought like, I'll try it and give it a try, and then maybe go back and teach high school, which still I might. Who knows? But at the same time, like I enjoy doing it so much now because of who I am and who I've met and stuff like that. That I'm going to keep trying to do it for as long as I can, and unless something happens. And so it's one of those things where if you're a young coach looking to get into things, like don't be afraid of the work, and don't be afraid of who you're working for or working with. Like you have to be able to get along with certain people. You have to be able to do whatever you need to do. And just like the advice I told you I got, you have to be able to go anywhere for anything, to do any job at any time. And for the longest time, it was just me and my truck. Mm-hmm. If it didn't fit my truck, I didn't keep it around. So it's just how it is. It's different now. Life happens and stuff like that. But if you're a young coach, that's like you have to have that mentality a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and coaches see that. Coaches see that, and they respect that, and that's how you move forward. That's how you grow. You get other, like if you're doing a good job at something, someone else should tell you about it. You shouldn't have to tell other people about it. Someone else should tell you about it, in my opinion. And so that's just what you hope to do. And if you work hard, hopefully that happens.
Thank you for listening to the Left Hash Call. For more episodes, you can go to Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. And be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, and even Facebook if you're into that. And I would really appreciate you subscribing, following, or just continue to listen. We'll see you next time. Peace.